I am audible to all.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, so we will start in a while. किसी को कुछ पूछना है? Anybody has anything to ask? So I got a message uh, during the class. Actually, I didn't get the message. Somebody in the team got the message, and then that was forwarded to me. So this happens now and then. Now this has become a routine. I didn't get that much disturbed by it, but still, I'm a human. So somebody was saying कि we are spending. ताला is saying कि subscription का plan cancel फिर से time पे 100 नहीं हुआ. So no, actually there are few issues. First one is that somebody, like, every time this happens, someone will come up this complaint that we talk too much in the class and teach very less, learn very less. तो वैसे कमेंट सुन के थोड़ा सा बहुत दुख सा होता है अंदर से. दुख इसलिए होता है क्योंकि मेरे लिए पढ़ा देना कोई बहुत बड़ी बात नहीं है, राइट. किताब उठाऊंगा, ऊपर से पढ़ना शुरू करूंगा, लास्ट तक पढ़ दूंगा कि हाँ ये ऐसा ऐसा हुआ, द स्टोरी इज ओवर. When I say anything extra in the class, I have to keep this in mind that I have given you a time schedule and I have to put extra effort to complete the syllabus in that time period. So when I discuss that how you should go for coaching or not, and where I said ki how you should plan your studies, and when I say ki सर कुछ स्टूडेंट को 22 के रिकॉर्डेड लेक्चर हैं अच्छे लगते हैं, तो सो इट मैं उस शौक से नहीं करता हूँ, उसके लिए मुझे बहुत एक्स्ट्रा इफोर्ट लगाना पड़ता है. एंड देन so last day we spent almost an hour discussing ki should you join the coaching or not, should you stay at your home, should you move out. For me it's easy, I can say कि जो करना है कर लो, मेरा क्या जाता है, मैं तुमसे उसके लिए पैसा थोड़ी ले रहा हूँ. तो बट फिर भी और कुछ लोगों को ऐसा लगता है कि somebody texted that some people ask silly questions and in that we spend a lot of time discussing those silly questions. देखो silly question कुछ नहीं होता है. I have said this previously too many a times. A personal anecdote from my own life. So I was in class 10th. Uh, I was in class 10th, and my also there was this great teacher who used to teach one single question in the entire class. He will not teach two questions. Hardly ever it has happened that he will take two questions of mathematics in one class. So even if he's discussing area of a circle, so he will take one class to just explain one question, and it will take a lot of time. So in one class he was discussing something, and somehow he asked about so entire syllabus has been completed, and so we were in probably in the revision mode, and again we were reading number system, so the first chapter of class 10th if I'm correct, mathematics. And so he was teaching something and I had completely forgotten ki what is a composite number. And when he was teaching, I'm always curious. I do not shy away from asking questions. So no matter who is standing and where I am, so I simply asked teacher, sir, composite number kya? What is composite number? And he made a lot of fun. He पहले तो खड़े हो जाओ. You are in class 10th and I was supposed to be a good student. So तुमको composite number नहीं पता है, तुम क्या कर रहे हो यहाँ पे? क्लास 5-6 में लड़के पढ़ते हैं कंपोजिट नंबर क्या होता है, एंड यू डू नॉट नो कंपोजिट नंबर. और बहुत मतलब लाइक फॉर द नेक्स्ट 5 मिनट्स वाज जस्ट जो भी कुछ उनके मन में आया, ही टोल्ड एवरीथिंग. आई वाज आल्सो फीलिंग वेरी असेम्ड कि क्यों पूछ दिया, इससे अच्छा तो किताब में देख लेते, किताब में डेफिनेशन में लिखा है, बट क्या मेरे दिमाग में है मैंने पूछ लिया. आई एम क्रशिंग माई सेल्फ. Then he asked that question to the entire class कि composite number क्या होता है? An entire class was silent. Nobody answered composite number क्या होता है? I feel a little bit revealed. चलो क्या किसी को नहीं आता है. And then the same teacher who was like saying everything to me कि क्या तुम कहाँ से उठ के आ गए हो, the same teacher appreciated that at least you showed that courage that you did not know, then you asked. Silly question कुछ नहीं होता है. The day you will tell this to anybody that your question is silly, तुम समझो कि तुम अपना ही नहीं पूरे समाज का, पूरे देश का, you are restricting the progress of the entire human civilization. There are no silly questions. I've told you many a time that you should read Leonardo da Vinci's life story. The two big books that I ask you all to read is one of the biography of Benjamin Franklin by Walter Sconson, and again by the same author you can read the life story of Leonardo da Vinci. So this guy, he's a painter, right? This guy is asking the question that why sky is blue. Like all of us are seeing sky is blue. Nobody is asking that why sky is blue. The guy is asking ki why, how uh, birds can fly, how their what's their wing structure. इतना डीप में जाके देखा कि वो चिड़िया खाना खाती है तो कैसे खाना खा रही है, उसके वो इसके मन में वो सवाल आता है और वो घंटों स्पेंड करता है. लाइक ही हैज स्पेंट इयर्स on observing a bird, that how that bird is able to pick his foods and eat and chew and digest that. तो एक एक उसका ड्राइंग जाके देखो, ड्राइंग में उसने इतने मेटिकुलसली ड्रॉ किया है एक एक स्टेप. सो फ्लिपिंग ऑफ द feathers of बटरफ्लाई, किस किस स्टेज में कैसे उसमें चार पंख हैं कि दो पंख हैं कि एक पंख है. That guy has went into that detail. He's asking that silliest question. क्या मतलब है कि वो तितली वो किस स्टेज में पंख हिला रही. So greatness lies in asking those silliest questions. Great people has evolved from there. When you can ask a question which the world thinks is a silly question. And about कि क्लास में बहुत टाइम लग जाता है और तुम्हारा बहुत टाइम वेस्ट हो जाता है. if you ever feel like this, any of you, so this is a very humble advice. I'm not being arrogant here. Please opt for some other class where you feel that you are great. Do not waste your time. And maybe that my knowledge is not that much that I can teach you something. तुमको ऑलरेडी बहुत सारी चीजें पता हो तो हो सकता है इस क्लास में तुमको अपना टाइम वेस्टेज लगता हो, तो ज्वाइन सम अदर क्लास वेयर यू फील दैट यू आर गेटिंग द राइट अमाउंट ऑफ नॉलेज दैट एट योर लेवल. स्टूडेंट्स और टीचर का भी लेवल मैच होना चाहिए ना, तो यू कैन ज्वाइन दैट क्लास वेयर यू कैन फाइंड राइट अमाउंट ऑफ नॉलेज अपने लेवल पे जाके. आई कल ही मैं सोच रहा था कि शेयर करूं तुम लोगों के साथ. I spent almost, so previously I don't used to keep a track, but nowadays I've installed an app in my phone so that I can keep some track on my online activities. I do not do anything on my phone. I just use WhatsApp. So no, anything else I have to do, I either do on my tab or on my laptop. So that's just for WhatsApp and Telegram. So on WhatsApp and Telegram, I'm just replying the queries. So rarely I do anything personal there. And I'm spending almost 4 to 5 hours every day on my phone just replying the queries of the students, even on weekdays when I'm not supposed to teach you. So and for that I don't need your appreciation or kuch ki nahi sir ha bahut acha sir ye I suppose that's my duty to guide you in the right path on the right path, because UPSC, as I feel, it's not just about कि मैं तुम्हें किताब पढ़ा दूं यार कोई तुम्हें किताब पढ़ा दे. So ठीक है, आपका अपना इशू हो सकता है, आप मैं शायद उतना क्वालिफाइड नहीं हूँ आपको पढ़ा सकूं, लेकिन क्लासेस तो ऐसे ही चलेंगी, जैसे चलती हैं वैसे ही चलेंगी. मैं जैसे पढ़ाता हूँ वैसे ही पढ़ाऊंगा. इफ यू हैव स्टिल एनी क्वेरी, कोई भी तरह का डाउट, आई एम ऑलवेज ओपन टू आंसर दैट. लेकिन क्लास में, हाँ क्लास में है 17 साल के भी लड़के हैं और 27 साल के भी, इवन 32 ईयर्स के भी लोग हैं क्लास में. एंड ऐसा दुनिया में कोई क्लास नहीं होता है जहाँ पे कि एक ही क्लास में 17 ईयर्स old student and 32 years old student both are sitting. So some of you are like, it's like a father and a son, or a mother and a daughter are sitting in the same class, and I have to teach, and I have to maintain a balance. And believe me, all of you are equally confused about what should be the right path. बहुत किताबें पढ़ने के बाद भी लोग स्टक करे करके रह जाते हैं कि कहाँ क्या करें. डोंट बी लाइक दैट. और about this Zoom issue, I am not subscribing to the higher plan, वो मैं मजाक मजाक में कहता हूँ कि 100 लोग नहीं आएंगे, 200 लोग नहीं आएंगे, वो सब अलग इशू है. I've already mailed, so I thought I will share the mail screenshot with all of you. I've already mailed the Zoom team, and so they took a lot of time to respond. So yesterday only I've mailed them to, because I'm not finding the right kind of option that I can right kind of package that I can buy. And this also, by the way, is not a free program. It's also a paid program, paid subscription on which we are talking right now, because on free you can just do 40 minutes live. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं तुम लोगों को पैसा बचाने के लिए नहीं सब्सक्राइब कर रहा. देयर आर लॉट ऑफ रीजंस व्हेन आई डू समथिंग. आई like I've told you told this always, when I'm doing something there is a reason, there's a purpose behind. So let's start the class. I will not took your time थोड़ा सा, लेकिन वो कभी कभी थोड़ा बुरा लगता है, क्या करूँ, आदमी हूँ. और जब आदमी परेशान होता है तो थोड़ा ज्यादा परेशान हो जाता है थोड़ी थोड़ी बात से. ठीक है. और क्या हो रहा है. टक. आईपैड भी हैंग करता है क्या. सेकंड. Akshay, I've made you host. I am leaving and I will rejoin because there is some issue with the tab. Okay, I'm making you host.
Okay, sir.
Akshay, can you make me host again? Yeah, I have claimed host. Okay, ठीक है, हो गया. इससे तो नहीं हो पाएगा. People are constantly leaving and joining and again asking me to allow everybody. Sorry, I could not read the previous chats that you guys have sent me. Anyway, let's start the class now.
सर ये YouTube का लिंक शेयर कर देंगे ग्रुप में.
हाँ हाँ हाँ.
तो फिर जो
हाँ कर. Akshay, I'm making you co-host. So because many people are constantly coming in the class, I cannot always keep a track of that. So please allow them if somebody is coming, right?
ओके सर. ओके
I'm not able to see who is in the class and who's not. So
सर पर मेरे यहाँ एक प्रॉब्लम है. मेरा वो जो ऑडियो है वो मैं इस वक्त रिकॉर्ड नहीं कर सकता, पर मैं सबको अलाउ कर
रिकॉर्ड.
सकता हूँ.
हाँ, रिकॉर्ड नहीं करना, अलाउ करना है बस. रिकॉर्ड तो ऑटो हो रहा है, बस अलाउ कर देना. अगर कोई आए
ready to connect.
ओके सर. ओके ओके.
The device paired successful.
Mute yourself. Okay. So in the last class, चलो ठीक है, अब आ जाओ. बस से 18 मिनट आज फिर वेस्ट हुआ उस एक मैसेज के चलते. ठीक है. Ruling the countryside. As we discussed.
ईयरफोन मेरे में.
अरे ये क्या कर रहे हो अक्षय? म्यूट रखो खुद को. Ruling the countryside. The company becomes Diwan.
सर मैं म्यूट हूँ, कोई और ऑन म्यूट है?
एक मिनट रुको, मैं म्यूट करता हूँ सबको. चलो ठीक है. Now it's okay. Yeah. So screen. So yeah, कहाँ थे हम लोग? कोई रिकैप कराएगा? Anybody? Oh, you guys cannot unmute yourself. Sorry. चलो मैं ही कराता हूँ. So yeah, we were where we were. अभी तक हमने डिस्कस किया that Britishers have used different ways to expand their rule in India. So they appointed residents, they used subsidiary alliance, they used the tactics of paramountcy, and then doctrine of lapse. Again, one of the corollary of paramountcy, you can say, ring of fence. So this these few techniques were used by them to expand their control, and finally we saw that they were able to reach up to where they were able to reach in 1756 they captured finally Awadh. That was the last state that they annexed. On the Awadh क्यों किया था? What was the reason for annexing Awadh? Chats.
सर मेल न्यूट्रिशन की तरफ से.
अरे माल न्यूट्रिशन नहीं.
सर मेल न्यूट्रिशन नहीं सर. वो मैं बोलना चाहता हूँ कि वो जो उधर में जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम चल रहा था इसलिए.
किसको माल न्यूट्रिशन हो गया था? नवाज सिराजुद्दौला was malnutrition.
सर मिस गवर्नमेंट
मिस गवर्नमेंट.
तो बोलना
ठीक है.
कुछ चाह रहा हो और हो जाए.
Okay, because of your this one mistake, now everybody will remember that Awadh was annexed on the pretext of not malnutrition but misgovernment. Then the company became Diwan. So as we read in 1765, they started a kind of dual government there, when where Diwani means collection of. Okay, let me first change it into the post report. So the Diwani, the right to collect revenue will be with East India Company, and administration will be in the hand of the Nawab. But later they also took administration into their hand. So the Diwani जिसके हाथ में, वो क्या करेगा? Now it had, when they got the Diwani, they had to think of administrating the land, organizing its revenue resources. As a trading company, they also had to ensure that they could buy the products it needs and sell what it wanted. So इन सब चीजों को उनका ध्यान रखना था. We will see that now they will slowly start expanding into the countryside. Means currently they're just governing the coal. They have their factories around Kolkata. Probably in the Murshidabad they have control because they had displaced the king now. But slowly now they will go into the countryside village areas where actual production is happening. They will now organize the revenue sources. They will redefine the rights of the people and produce the crops that they wanted. ठीक है? Revenue for the company, from where they were getting the money. Initially, they did not wanted to set up any regular system of assessment and collection. As we read कि बहुत time तक even British, this East India Company was itself very confused that they are still a trader or they want to rule. ये debate उनके दिमाग में हमेशा चलता रहा कि who we are and what we want to do. So they never, initially they didn't try to set up a regular system of assessment and collection. Now I know most of you have forgotten this, but try to answer that what was the revenue system that was adopted by Akbar. If you have forgotten, go and revise. Within the 5 years, the value of goods bought by the company doubled. So they were not doing any regular review, regular assessment, but they were just trying to maximize in whatsoever manner they can. So they were buying the fine cotton and silk cloth as cheaply as possible, and because of this, their revenues were growing a lot. We have also read this before 1865, they had to borrow or import gold and silver from Britain, but now after this they have a normal regular revenue source. So what was the impact of the British rule? This you will read again in his we read it from different perspectives in sociology, again reading in history. One of the major impact was that artisan production decline. Artisan production means at this time, Nawabs, kings, whosoever was, they were like rich people who were buying or patronizing all these people who were producing good paintings, fine clothes, embroidery, etc. But when these Nawabs themselves become powerless, moneyless, there was no one to buy all these things. So artisanal production declined. Agricultural cultivation showed sign of collapse. Even agricultural cultivation declined. Now, why agriculture declined? Because Britishers were trying to buy the things as cheap as possible, and peasants were unable to pay the dues that were being demanded from them. So artisans deserted their village, peasants deserted their village, and we saw a migration of all these people who were living in village area to the urban areas. Then came 77 ka a terrible famine called 10 and it killed 10 million people in Bengal. सोचो एक बार में भी हम लोग कोरोना 1%, 2%, 5% people have died and so much इतना हाहाकार मचा हुआ है. 1/3 of population was wiped out during one single famine in 1770. Now, Britishers at this point felt the need to improve the agriculture. Not because they were very generous, because they didn't had any other option, because they realized if they want more revenue, they have to improve agricultural production. So company finally introduced the permanent settlement in 1793. ये सब बहुत important है, permanent settlement. क्या हुआ? अभी तक तो avoid कर रहे थे. So they want to keep the things in perspective. 1757 they won Battle of Plassey. 1765 they won Battle of Buxar. Now they have got the Diwani rights, but they have established a double government where they have just Diwani and administration they have left to the Nawab. Then in 1773 they thought that now it's time to become Nawab themselves, and Warren Hastings has become the Governor General. Now, for all these 20-30 years, they didn't establish any permanent method, any way in which the tax should be collected. They were just randomly forcing anybody, जो जितना दे दे मार काट के उसे ले लो, ऐसा system चला रहे थे. But ultimately in 1793 they realized that this is not going to help them. So to improve the revenue, they come up with this idea of permanent settlement. इसमें क्या होता है इसको समझ लो. बहुत बार confusing है. It's confused me a lot. So I hope you get your idea cleared in the very first instant. By the terms of the settlement, so basically एक broad idea ये है कि Britishers make a deal with the landlords, which are called jamindars. So the jamindars can be rajas or talukdars. So anybody who has considerable amount of land, Britishers will not now directly collect the revenue from the peasants. They will get their money from these jamindars. Now jamindars were supposed to collect revenue from the peasants. So zamindars were asked to collect rent from the peasants and pay the revenue to the company. The amount paid was fixed permanently. That's why permanent settlement. So the money that zamindars have to pay to the Britishers was fixed. क्या फिक्स था? Peasants से जो लेंगे जमींदार ये फिक्स नहीं था. They had fixed that how much money zamindars will pay to the Britishers. and it was not to be increased ever in future. Now this statement is very confusing. If you will get this statement in your exam, it might confuse you. It's saying, क्योंकि कई बार देखो एमसीक्यू में जब और आगे पढ़ोगे तो बहुत तुम्हारे सीनियर्स तुमको ऐसा एडवाइस करेंगे, बहुत टीचर्स ऐसा एडवाइस करेंगे, that and you should, most of the time this trick works also in UPSC, that if you will get a MCQ question and you have 4 options. Now in these 4 options, people say कि if the statement is extreme option, get this trick right today. So if the statement is very extreme means कि अगर कुछ ऐसा कहता है कि ये कभी नहीं हो सकता, this is never ever possible, or saying कि this must happen, ये हमेशा ही होगा, या कुछ ऐसा कि मतलब समझ रहे हो ना एक्सट्रीम क्या होता है. इस तरीके अगर कोई एक्सट्रीम एक्शन ऑप्शन होता है तो मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम यू विल सी दैट दैट इज अ रॉन्ग स्टेट. only this person has done this, or only this has happened in this period, no one else has done. So must, never, only, इस तरीके के जो जल गया कंप्यूटर मेरा, चार्ज में लगाने की कोशिश कर रहा था, पूरा धुआं हो गया. हाय राम. $23 comments. Many of you have said the system. अरे बहुत लंबा. अच्छा चलो ठीक है. No, we will continue this class only. I can't go for extra classes. Many of you have just joined this because this is a weekend batch. तो ठीक है, ये सब छोटा छोटा इश्यू होता रहता है, कोई बड़ा बात नहीं है. देखते हैं, सब सॉर्ट आउट किया जाएगा. Yeah, so I was saying that, so if you find some extreme statements, I was talking about extreme and something very extreme happened, right? So life is funny. ये चैप्टर तो कम से कम कर ही लेंगे. हाँ, तो if you find some extreme statements, it's advised that most of the time that option will be wrong. ठीक है, अगर इस तरह कुछ मिलता है तो. लेकिन sometime you will find, and that's why when you should be careful when you are finding some extreme statement, whatever text you are reading, you should be very careful about that extreme statement, क्योंकि तुमने तो इधर ध्यान नहीं दिया और तुम इस लॉजिक को लगाओगे और वो स्टेटमेंट. तो यहाँ पे कह रहा है कि under permanent settlement, it was said that they will never ever increase the tax in future. And why would they do so? They felt that this would encourage a regular flow of revenue into the company's coffers and at the same time encourage the zamindars to invest in improving the land. क्या है अभी जमींदार को तो बोल दिया कि you have to just pay a fixed amount to the company. Now if zamindar will improve the productivity of the land by investing, by creating canals, dams, वगैरह, so what he will ultimately gain? He will get more revenue, and when he will get revenue, he can keep that to himself because he don't have to give that to the company. So they thought कि if we will come up with the system, company will get a permanent solution that इनको जो आना है वो permanently आता रहेगा, and zamindars will also invest into increasing the productivity of the area, because zamindars would ultimately benefit from the increased production from the land. But this was not fruitful. This failed because at the very first instant, the revenue that they fixed was so high that the zamindars found it difficult to pay. The revenue that has been fixed was so high that zamindars found it difficult to pay. Initially, उन्होंने पहला जो first time ही इतना ज़्यादा revenue उन्होंने set कर दिया कि जमींदार पहले ही नहीं पे कर पा रहे थे, तो क्या revenue, क्या productivity increase कराने के लिए पैसा लगाएंगे. So numerous jamindaris were sold off at auctions organized by the company. Jamindaris were sold off. इनका इस समय क्या था कि if the zamindars will not be able to pay this money that they were asked to pay initially, they will not be able to hold off. Their jamindaris will be sold to the highest bidder. किसी और को बेच दिया जाएगा जमींदारी. But in the first decade of the 19th century, the situation changed. First decade of 19th century यानी 1800s, right? So in this, the situation changed. Market prices increased and slowly cultivation also increased and the income of zamindars increased. And they started getting more money और company को कोई फायदा नहीं हो रहा था. Company was not able to gain because they have already fixed the revenue. Even then, the zamindars did not have the interest in increasing the revenue. इसके बाद भी वो जमींदार नहीं कुछ इन्वेस्ट कर रहे थे लैंड की फर्टिलिटी को, प्रोडक्टिविटी को इंक्रीज करने में. Because you can also relate, for the so many years, for previously 9-10 years, they have been struggling. Now for the first time they saw that okay, the zamindari can be profitable, so why they will invest in improving all those things. On the other hand, in the village, the cultivator found the system extremely oppressive. ये cultivators के लिए भी oppressive हो गया. क्यों? क्योंकि rent he paid to the zamindar was high and his rent on the land was insecure. Right on the land was insecure. ये important point है. First, जमींदार को initially बहुत ज़्यादा rent देना था Britishers को, so he charged a very high amount from the farmers. So पहले तो ये होगा. और दूसरा कि the land that was belonging to these farmers, that were not their land, that land was the land of zamindar. I mean, zamindar was not sure that it is his land. Next time his zamindari can be sold off to someone else. So this farmer is also not interested into improving the productivity of the land for the long term, because वो तो land zamindar का है. Then came the trap of money lenders. Whenever he will fail to pay the rent, he was evicted from the land and he had cultivated for the generations. So ऐसा मनी लैंडर वी विल से दे प्लेड अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल. वो इस ऐसा एक लूप बनाए थे कि वो कभी खत्म ही नहीं होता था. नाउ महल. अच्छा, इसके बारे में आते हैं. सो दे कम अप विद अ न्यू सिस्टम नाउ. ये 3 सीक्वेंस चलता है. पहले the first system is permanent settlement, the second system is Mahalwadi, and then the later we will see in this period or a bit late they come up with the idea of Raiyatwadi system. तीनों में कंपैरिजन कॉन्ट्रास्ट काफी इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है, प्री मेन सब जगह आता है. तो ठीक है, पहला सिस्टम ने समझ लिया, परमानेंट सेटलमेंट, देयर प्रॉब्लम्स एंड व्हाई इट फेल्ड. नाउ द न्यू सिस्टम दैट दे डिवाइस्ड इज कॉल्ड Mahalwadi system. This so permanent settlement is happening in the areas of Bengal, Odisha, etc. In northwestern provinces of the Bengal presidency. So nowadays the area of Uttar Pradesh. So in UP, they come up with this idea of Mahalwadi system. This was started by Holt Mackenzie. He devised the new system which came into effect in 1822. So 93 में वो आया by Cornwallis, and in 1822 this Mahalwadi system was started in UP by Holt Mackenzie. So what was the basis of this very system? He felt that in village Indian society act as a combined unit. So village में पंचायत जो मुखिया है उसका बहुत ज्यादा impact है, and they are using a lot of resources unitedly. So ये सब सोच के इसने कहा कि instead of fixing the revenue on one person or just asking the zamindars to pay the rent, he estimated the revenue of each plot within a village and added up to calculate the revenue that each village has to pay. So ये एक एक विलेज का इसने फिक्स कर दिया कि इस विलेज का इतना पे करना है, इस विलेज को इतना पे करना है, इंस्टेड ऑफ द इंडिविजुअल फार्मर्स और जमींदार्स. Each village, so each village was called at that time mahal. So each village has to pay the revenue. Now this revenue will be collected. This demand was to be revised periodically. यहाँ कोई fix नहीं था. So once I have paid, again he will come and estimate the revenue, and he can, or the government can change. And here the village headman will be responsible for collecting the revenue and paying to the company. So no zamindars, no individual farmers, here village and village headman. This system is called Mahalwadi settlement. And finally the Munro system or the Raiyatwadi. ये कई बार confuse कर सकता है एग्जाम में, because the more famous term that you will be coming across in all the exams is Raiyatwadi system. So many a times when the Munro system comes in the paper, students get confused कि what is the Munro system, क्योंकि NCERT ही Munro system use करता है और किसी standard books में you will not generally find the term Munro system. And the third system is Raiyatwadi system or Munro system. So this is happening now in South India. The new system that was devised come to be known as Raiyatwadi or Raiyatwad. It was tried on a small scale by Alexander Reed. तो तीन नाम यहाँ पे याद कर लिए हमने, Cornwallis, Holt, and now Alexander Reed. In some areas that were taken by the company after the wars of टीपू सुल्तान. So टीपू सुल्तान मर गया, उसके बाद Alexander Reed ने इसको स्टार्ट किया था, और रीड के साथ मिलके मुनरो, थॉमस मुनरो ने इसको डेवलप किया. So that's why it's called Munro system, which extended over all over South India. Here the settlement was to be made directly with the cultivators who had tilted the land for generations. तो एक बेसिक डिफरेंस क्या था साउथ में और नॉर्थ में, तुमको समझना चाहिए कि साउथ इंडिया, in South India, there were no big zamindars, and these peasants almost for a very long time has been independent farmers, and they had certain rights over their lands. On the other hand, in North, because Mughals were very strong in this region, there were big zamindars, landlords, and they have firm control over the land. So either farmers do not have their individual right on property. So यहाँ पे जो भी system बनता था वो collective बनता था, यानी permanent और महलवाड़ी. And here individual farmers were given the right to their land कि ये तुम्हारा 5 बीघा तुम्हारा है, you have 5 acre land, you are supposed to pay direct tax to the British government or East India Company. So the here fields have to be careful, surveyed carefully, and उसके बाद उसका revenue estimate होता कि 5 एकड़ से तुम्हारे यहाँ you can produce this much amount of wheat, rice, whatever, and so you should pay this much amount of money. So careful estimation was done. But in this system also all was not well. Driven by the desire to increase the income from the land, revenue officials fixed too high revenue demand. इन्होंने पहले ही क्या किया in the very first stint, जैसा permanent settlement में जो गलती की थी, they did the same mistake here, and they fixed too high revenue demand. Peasants were unable to pay. Riots fled the countryside. अभी riot यहाँ तो क्या था कि ठीक है, वो अगर रेंट नहीं मिला तो विलेज हेडमैन इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल, वो कहीं से भी निकाल के दे. बट इन महलवाड़ी, बट इन रैयत सिस्टम, individual peasants were directly in contact with the East India Company, so they do not have any option. If their crops has failed and a British official is knocking at his door to pay the revenue, they fled the countryside. घर छोड़ के, जमीन छोड़ के भाग गया, अब जो होना है होगा. And villages become deserted in many regions. So optimistic officials imagine the new system would transfer the peasants into rich, enterprising farmers. It's funny. They thought कि peasants जो है ये enterprising farmers बन जाएंगे, but that didn't happen. So इसके बारे में बात नहीं किया है, इसके failures के बारे में. महलवाड़ी system also failed because if this revenue was to be collected by the village headman. यहाँ पे क्या हुआ, हम लोग जब डिटेल से पढ़ते हैं तो पढ़ते हैं कि a new class of people emerged, which was, we have talked about them previously too, absentee landlords. यहाँ क्या हुआ कि many people will come and they will buy some land in the village, or they will buy the rights to collect the revenue of a particular place, and they will not do anything on that land, just collect the revenue and share the revenue with the Britishers. और उसके चलते काफी एक डिससेटिस्फैक्शन, रेवेन्यू लॉस गवर्नमेंट को होने लगा, विलेज की इकोनॉमी और खराब होने लगी, क्योंकि इन लोगों को तो विलेज में कोई इंटरेस्ट रहता नहीं था कि प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़े या ना बढ़े. Then this also created one major problem with this was that traditionally there have been many small zamindars and all who have been collecting rent in this place. Now इन लोगों का तो एक बार में पूरा सफाया हो गया, तो they were rich. Now they will revolt, so they were just biding their time. Then that's why we will see कि this is happening when in 2022. So after 20-30 years, when the protest will start, they will be the first to join. Finally, crops for the Europe. Revenue का तो source इन्होंने ठीक ठाक अपना कर लिया. Now they want what? Now they want crops that they can buy here and sell into Europe or anywhere else in the world. So India became the hub for the cultivation of opium and indigo. Now, what was their interest in opium cultivation? I hope many of you have heard the story. So anybody want to share, I just want to take a pause here. Opium production क्यों करवाना चाहते थे ब्रिटिशर्स? Anybody? Okay. Okay. Let me allow you all to unmute yourself. Yeah. So anybody? Why Britishers were interested in opium cultivation in India?
Sir, because they were exporting opium to the China and they were importing tea from China, sir.
Okay. Very good. Nice. This was the best possible answer that we can get. Okay, so now going back to the slide sharing. इतनी जल्दी आंसर दे दोगे, मैं थोड़ा आराम करना चाह रहा था वो. ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं. Good answer. So just to explain it a bit more, I think this very ironic. What Britishers did to us is they give us one of the biggest addiction of tea. Initially, you will see that in India, people were least interested in tea, and Britishers actually set up many stalls to sell tea, and they used to give this tea for free. देखोगे बहुत सारे स्टेट एडवर्टाइजमेंट उस टाइम का भी मिलते हैं. They were distributing teas for free, and they did that for so many years. Now, why Britishers were so interested into selling tea to India? We have read this, that there was nothing that Britishers were growing, or any of the Europeans were growing in their country, that they could have sold to India. कुछ था ही नहीं. Trade कैसे होता है? You buy something and you sell something. But they had nothing that they could have sold to India. So they strategically developed this addiction into us, that we can, at least they have something to sell to India. And India fall into that trap. We started drinking tea, the demand increased substantially. But this was not the worst that they could have done. They did the worst to China. What they did is, now China was cultivating tea. And China, if you read Chinese history, China has been even close. India, although was participating in global trade for long, and it was an open country. I've read about Cholas who were going all around and doing all kind of trades. China has kind of closed itself very much into 18th, 19th century. अपने में खुश थे, किसी से मतलब नहीं. Big country, self-sustaining, developing, prospering nation. इनको क्या बेचा जाए? They had tea too. And they had to buy tea because they were not able to produce tea. So they had to buy tea to sell to India. And what they will sell to China? They started selling opium. There are many stories in Chinese history that the opium addiction reached up to such an extent in China that when child used to cry, mother would give him or her opium. बच्चा रोता था तो माँ ओपियम खिला देती थी. इतना बड़ा एडिक्शन उन्होंने चाइना में पैदा किया. And China is such a country that they were able to fight that, and now China has almost controlled that addiction. नहीं तो Chinese civilization को बर्बाद करने के लिए इन्होंने काफी अच्छा एक प्लान प्रिपेयर कर लिया था. तो that was happening at that time. So buy opium from India and sell it to, so grow opium in India, sell it to China, and grow tea in China and sell it to India. So this was kind of happening. Later they started tea cultivation in India too, to sell it to the world, when they found that okay, India also have the suitable climate. चाय का भी अपना बहुत मजेदार कहानी है. You can read. So yeah, where I was. So sometime they persuaded, sometime they force Indian cultivators to grow these products. In some other parts, jute was grown in Bengal, tea in Assam, sugarcane in UP, wheat in Punjab, cotton in Maharashtra and Punjab, and rice in Madras. They used a variety of methods to expand the cultivation of crops that they needed. Now, ये तो समझ में आ गया opium. Why they were so much adamant on the cultivation of indigo? You see, indigo at that time was the most valuable product, because what England was doing, England had become a center for the export of manufactured clothings, जो इंडिया के आर्टिसंस को बर्बाद करके वहां पे इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन हो गया था, and they were trying to produce these clothes by machine and they want to sell it to the world. And to clean the cotton, you need indigo to give it the whitest long lasting color. You need indigo in large quantity, because cotton, if will produce on its own, it's like pale yellow, it's not completely white. So to make it white or give it this blue background, you need indigo, नील की खेती. So you should also know about these things. They are asked in you will be reading this in India's culture. Different printing styles. So kalamkari print, this is done in India. You can see the remarkable similarity between India's kalamkari print and the Morris cotton print, which became the world famous print, and also created by William Morris, who was also acclaimed poet and artist. So they tried to copy Indian style as much as they can. And India became the biggest supplier of indigo in the world at that time. Now, I have covered all this, why the demand for Indian indigo. So indigo, it's saying it was also produced in Italy, France and Britain, but they were not as good in quality as the Indian indigo. So अभी sharing आ रहे हैं, class sharing, yeah, entering class right now after an hour. The French began cultivating indigo in Saint Domingo in the Caribbean island, and the Portuguese in Brazil, English in Jamaica, and Spanish in Venezuela. But you will see that in Jamaica there was some protest, revolt, and finally their production collapsed there, so they had to move to India. अभी अमेरिकन रिवॉल्यूशन में पढ़ोगे, एक्चुअली देखो वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री भी काफी कनेक्टेड है इंडियन हिस्ट्री से. सो सॉरी. क्या ड्रॉ किया है मैंने, कुछ तुम लोगों को समझ में आ रहा है?
नॉर्थ अमेरिका एंड साउथ अमेरिका.
हाँ ठीक है. सो अमेरिका गॉट इट इंडिपेंडेंस इन this period 1783 to 1789 में तो फ्रेंच, 1783 America got its independence. Before this, America was the source of raw materials for Britain. Every kind of exploitation they were doing in America. vast land they had. So, and relatively easier to come from America to Britain than coming all across the America to India. So, but after 1783, when you will read world history, you will come to know that how Americans revolted against the taxes that were imposed on them. Then they tried to come up with tea tax. Then they come up with stamp tax, and all that. They were rejected by Americans, and finally they got their independence. Now you see, even if you'll see India में कब इन्होंने permanent settlement लाया 1793 में. इससे पहले they were just like कि चलो जितना लूट सकते हैं लूट लो. Even you will see in 1773 में वो एक लॉ लाते हैं, उसके बाद 1784 में एक लॉ लाते हैं. इससे पहले they are least interested into so especially the British government was least interested into directly governing India. They were like कि ठीक है ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी को चलाने दो जैसे चलाना है, because we are getting considerable amount of profit from America. But when America got its independence, Britain has to find a substitute, an alternative, and India was the best possible alternative. And that's why, so you can say at one point, you can also say that America paid the price of British American independence. So faced by the rising demand for the indigo, the company in India looked for ways to expand the area under cultivation. और बहुत तरीके से by force, by duping people, they for the last decades of the 18th century, so that's the period 1780s, 90s and 100s, the indigo cultivation in Bengal expanded rapidly. In 1788, just 33% of the indigo was imported from India to Britain, and by 1810, 95% was coming from India only. Now, what they started this unique scheme that those who have no money to produce indigo could get loans from the company and the banks that were coming up at that time. हमने पहले ही बात की कि कैसे ये स्कॉटिश और इंग्लिश मैन ये प्रॉफिट के चक्कर में इंडिया आते थे, and they became planters. They became indigo growers, and they were funded by the company to clear more area and to increase more production. Now, indigo production को लेके इतना दिक्कत क्या है? Why the people were revolting and protesting against this? There were two main systems for indigo cultivation: निज and रैयती. अब निज में क्या होता है कि within the system of niche cultivation, the planter would produce indigo in the lands that he directly controls. निजी बोलते हैं ना हिंदी में, निज अपना, own. So if you're doing something on your own land, so that will be called niche. And other ways that he will rent the land from other person, from other zamindar, and produce indigo on that land. The problem with niche cultivation. So at this period, farmers wanted to produce rice or other crops which were essential for their daily survival. So at this time, it was not easy to mobilize the labor. So everybody is busy in their own kind of things. Even the bullocks, even the plows and the oxes which were needed for the cultivation, वो भी मिलना मुश्किल होता था. So they were neither plows and bullocks. One bigha of indigo cultivation, and you should know about bigha in North India. It's quite popular. Probably South Indian students may find it a little bit difficult. Just a measurement of land. So less than 25% of the land producing indigo was under this system. नीच वाले तो कभी, मतलब जिनके पास अपनी जमीन है वो कभी भी, वो बहुत रिलक्टेंट थे, एंड दे विल नॉट ट्राइंग, दे वर trying not to produce or trying to excuse themselves from production of indigo. So 75% of cultivation was happening under this Rayat system. Under the Rayat system, the planters forced the Rayat to sign a contract. This was the main point of contention, that planters first had to sign a contract called Satta or Satta. At times they pressurized the village headman to sign the contract on behalf of the Rayats. ये village headman को ही बोलेंगे तू ही भाई सबके लिए sign कर ले. And once signed, they will got some cash in advance, and they were forced to cultivate indigo on at least 25% of the area under his holding. अब ये planters ही खुद सब कुछ provide करेंगे, seed, drill, while the cultivators prepared the soil, sowed the seed and look after the crop. ये दिखने में तो अच्छा लग रहा है, क्या दिक्कत है, तुमको सीड भी मिल जा रहा है, तुमको वो सब भी, तुमको सब दे रहे हैं, तो you should be able to know this, right? But the price that these farmers were, first they were getting loans. Now, so once you get the loan, you have to repay that loan. How will you repay that loan? By selling the indigo that you have grown. But the price of indigo was very low, and the cycles of loans never ended. So once you force someone into signing a contract, once he has signed the contract, and if once anybody has agreed to plant indigo, क्या होगा, next year उसको जब लोन चुकाना होगा तो उसके पास पैसा नहीं है, तो ये पैसा कहाँ से आएगा? Again company will say, okay, next year also plant indigo, I'm giving you another loan. So loan upon loan, so he will take loan here and repay the previous loan, but he has to, like, खाने के लिए भी तो कुछ रखना है, they will take more loan. Next year also he will not get the enough sufficient price to pay the previous loans, he will take loan. So it's never ending cycle of loan and never ending cycle of growing indigo. Another problem was that indigo can be cultivated only on the best soils, and indigo's root were very deep, so they will destroy the fertility of the soil. Once after indigo harvest, land could not be used to sow the rice, and then happened the first rebellion, 1515-7 peasant rebellion, you can say, the Blue Rebellion, Neel Andolan. So in March 1859, thousands of ryots in Bengal refused to grow indigo. Rebellion spread. अभी देखो यहाँ पे कुछ चीजें हम सीखेंगे कि रिबेलियन से किस तरीके का क्वेश्चन आता है, ठीक है? As the rebellion spread, ryots refused to pay rents to the planters, वगैरह वगैरह, उन्होंने कई तरह के फाइट किया. तो सबसे पहला चीज क्या आता है, what were the methods adopted in any rebellion? So अभी से ये हमेशा ध्यान में रखोगे कि whenever in history you are reading anything, so like the first thing will be कि was it a violent protest or a non-violent protest? If it was violent, was it a communal one? Was it a communal or it's a non-communal? It's a non-violent. Then why it was non-violent? Who were leading? इस तरीके का किसी भी रिवॉल्यूशन में तुम ये सब फैक्शंस देख के चलोगे. Women participated or not? Educated class participated or not? इस तरीके का हर जगह तुम देखने का कोशिश करोगे. So इसमें देखते हैं कि क्या क्या होता है. So first they refused to pay rents. They attacked the indigo factories with armed swords and spears, bows and arrows. Even women turned up to fight with pots, pans, and kitchen implements. Planters were socially boycotted. Social boycott means, ये word एक बार देख लेना, गुमस्थाज, they are agents of the planters, जो पैसा कलेक्ट करते थे. So क्या दिक्कत है कृतिका? इसके साथ नेटवर्क का प्रॉब्लम है कृतिका, for entering and exiting the class again and again. So agents of the planters who come to collect rent were beaten up. Rayat swore they would no longer take advances to sow indigo. कि अब तो कभी भी लोन नहीं लेंगे. Or they hired their own lathats. Sorry, they bullied planters lathats, and they organized themselves to fight against them. So in 1859, the Indigo riots felt that they had the support of local jamindars and village headmen in the rebellion against the planters. अभी ये जो planters आ रहे थे ब्रिटेन से, ये क्या कर रहे थे? They were buying big areas of land, or if they were not buying themselves, they were by force entering into the contracts. Because of that, the local jamindars or village headmen, they were feeling that their importance has reduced now. These village jamindars were unhappy with the increasing power of the planters and angry at being forced by the planters to give them land on long leases. इसमें एक बहुत और फनी चीज, मजेदार चीज क्या होती है कि एट दिस पॉइंट लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर ही टूट द रीजन इन 1859. उन्होंने ऐसा कह दिया, एक स्टेटमेंट, ऐसा भाषणबाजी में ही गिव दिस स्पीच समवेयर. So Magistrate Ashley Eden issued a notice stating that riots would not be compelled to accept the indigo contracts. अब जैसा ही ऐसा उन्होंने स्पीच में या कहीं नोटिस में ऐसा कहा, the word spread around that Queen Victoria had declared that indigo would not be shown. मतलब बात कुछ और चली, वहां से खबर कुछ और पहुंची लोगों तक. तो उन्होंने सोचा कि सरकार ने कह दिया कि अब तो इंडिगो प्लांट करना ही नहीं है. Eden was trying to placate the peasants and control the explosive situation, but the action was read as a support for the rebellion. Rebellion spread, and ये भी, हाँ, जैसे मैंने बोला कि यहाँ पे intellectual class participate करता है कि नहीं, elite class participate करता है कि नहीं, educated class. So in this rebellion, even intellectuals from the Kolkata rushed to the indigo districts, and they started writing for them many books. So इसी टाइम में नील दर्पण from people from the West Bengal, इस बार भी आया था शायद क्वेश्चन, हर बार आता है WBCS में. तो नील दर्पण किसका लिखा हुआ है?
DL Roy.
So in this period, this book was written. एक बार देखना डीएल रॉय है या अच्छा, हम इसको लेके भी काफी कंफ्यूजन होता है कि ट्रांसलेशन किसी ने लिखा और बाद में फिर किसी ने लिखा, तो एक बार चेक कर लेना. फिर भी this movement took an interesting turn. Something which started as a violent protest, violent movement, with the entry of intellectuals, now they started writing letters and petitioning the government for the rights of the peasants. So an indigo commission was set up to inquire into the system of indigo production, and commission held the planters guilty. This was a major victory that a British government, British institution is helping the Britishers guilty. They criticized them, and it declared that indigo production was not profitable for the riots. तो इन्होंने कहा कि भाई जो तुम्हारा अभी जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है उसको तो तुम फुलफिल करो, बट इन फ्यूचर यू कैन रिफ्यूज एनी सच कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. यहाँ पे एक मजेदार स्टोरी है अबाउट ईश्वरचंद विद्यासागर. ईश्वरचंद विद्यासागर की का ही है, हाँ शायद ईश्वरचंद विद्यासागर का ही एक मजेदार स्टोरी है. So एक कहीं पे ये चल रहा था, क्या बताऊं, एक कहीं नाटक चल रहा था, एंड इन दैट प्ले the play was based upon this exploitation of the indigo planters, and the play was written so well and the actor was acting so well, and so Ishwarchand Vidyasagar, he is such an emotional person that by seeing that act he became emotional, and for a second he forgot that it's a play, and he threw his shoe at the person who was playing the role of planter. उसको जूता फेंक के दे मारा कि ये क्या exploitation कर रहा है. On that, what would have been the reaction of this actor? इसने कहा कि आज तक मुझे बहुत अवार्ड मिला, बहुत लोगों ने बहुत सम्मान दिया है, बट पहली बार ये जूता जो है मेरे लिए मेरे जिंदगी का सबसे बड़ा पुरस्कार है, क्योंकि मैंने ऐसी एक्टिंग की कि ईश्वरचंद विद्यासागर जैसा आदमी ये भूल गया कि वो नाटक देखने बैठा है या सच देख रहा है. दिस इज द बेस्ट अचीवमेंट फॉर एन एक्टर. तो जस्ट वो इंटेलेक्चुअल वाली बात पे ये कहानी याद आ गई. देखो नील दर्पण को लेके बहुत डिबेट है. आई हैव आल्सो फॉलोड दिस डिबेट फॉर वेरी लॉन्ग. सो पीपल आर कंफ्यूज्ड बिटवीन दीनबंधु मित्रा एंड मधुसूदन दत्त. देख लेना एक बार किसने क्या किया है. But people from West Bengal, I trust them because this question has been repeated in WBCS so many times. चलो ठीक है, coming back to where we were. So this was indigo farming. After the revolt, indigo production collapsed in Bengal but shifted to Bihar. And that's why, when Mahatma Gandhi came, he visited Champaran. We will read about this in detail. चंपारण मूवमेंट होता है वहां पे, ठीक है. इंडिगो प्लांटेशन इन वेस्ट इंडीज के बारे में थोड़ा पढ़ सकते हो उधर से. नेक्स्ट चैप्टर स्टार्ट करें. चैप्टर नंबर 4. सुमित थोड़ा रेस्ट ले ले. रेस्ट तो मैं बहुत ले सकता हूँ, लेकिन बताओ तुम लोग कुछ।
Sir, I have a question. What is the basic difference between rebellion and revolt?
इतना खतरनाक सवाल मुझसे पूछोगे? मैं बहुत बच्चा आदमी। रिबेलियन एंड रिवोल्ट, रिबेलियन एंड रिवोल्ट, बाकी लोगों को क्या लगता है? कोई आंसर देना चाहता है कुछ? What is the difference between rebellion and revolt? Anyone? All of you can unmute yourselves. Vamsi is saying rebellion is group and revolt is?
I think sir, revolt is for group and rebellion is for individual. Like
अच्छा, चलो एक तो कंट्राडिक्टरी व्यू यहाँ मिल गया अपने को। और एनीवन एल्स? और कोई सवाल? रिबेलियन एंड रिवोल्ट, Rudrak is saying rebellion is deliberate but peaceful. Revolt is sudden and violent. Rebellion, rebellion fails. Sarika is saying the goal of rebellion is resistance, while a revolt seeks a revolution. The goal of rebellion is resistance, while revolt seeks a revolution. ठीक है, ये थोड़ा सा इंटरेस्टिंग है। रिबेलियन मीन्स रेजिस्टेंस एंड रिवोल्ट सिक्स। अरे ये क्या तुम लोग गूगल कर रहे हो क्या? सेम आंसर रवनीत अंसारी का। Ritesh is saying revolt influence political, economic and social condition. A revolt is an illegal and often violent attempt by a group of people to change their country's political system. Revolt is against the same order or against some order or some laws. First rebellion, then increasement to revolt. Truly, if you'll ask me, I do not differentiate the two terms in a very great fashion, but हाँ, इंग्लिश सेमेंटिक्स है, 2 वर्ड है, तो अंतर तो जरूर होना चाहिए। if I go by some explanation, तो कुछ लोगों का मुझे आंसर थोड़ा ठीक लगता है कि रिबेल मतलब ऐसा पर्सनल और इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे जो सोच रहे हैं, तो वो कुछ भी, दोनों में भी कुछ भी हो सकता है। यू कैन रिवोल्ट अगेंस्ट समथिंग एंड यू कैन रिबेल अगेंस्ट समथिंग। Now, sometimes revolution, if we revolution, we think in terms of a big picture कि बहुत कुछ ऐसा है उसको चेंज करने के लिए। Priya is saying that's a good. The person who makes revolt is a rebel. He can be a revolutionary, right? A rebellion is an attempt to overthrow a government. You can rebel in your house too. Jyoti Singh, maybe same or different. Both are same, but in different time act. And rebellion is for getting freedom. सब हाँ, प्रतीक
Sir,
Partikava.
both words are sir, both words are look similar, sir. But rebellion in the context of history, sir, we see in the Indigo when people were not trying to cultivate indigo, it
Hmm.
was for some people, sir. And when we talk about revolt in history context, we talk about the revolt of 1857. It was quite violent in nature, and it was quite large in public uh, quantity, sir.
ठीक है, ये भी एक इस तरीके से भी सोच सकते हैं कि रिबेलियन छोटे स्तर पे होता है, रिवोल्ट बड़े लेवल पे होता है. बट देन अल्टीमेटली व्हाट, लाइक इफ यू विल आस्क मी, आई विल से कि दिस जस्ट वर्ड्स प्ले. दैट्स नॉट समथिंग कि कुछ इसमें कंक्रीट है ऐसा. बस शब्दों का वो खेल है, थोड़ा इधर थोड़ा उधर कर दिया और लिंग्विस्ट लोग अपना. किशोर कह रहे हैं कि बगावत बड़ा रूप लेती है तो क्रांति हो जाती है. ठीक बात है. रिबेलियन, we can think in this context कि rebellion, first people rebel against something. They if they are exploited, they are tortured, or they feel something is not just, they first rebel. And when the rebel grow and it finds some resonance with the larger community, it turns into a revolution. ठीक है.
हाँ सर. ओके.
I think this definition sums up all the point of views that has been given by now in the class. ठीक है, तो चलो थोड़ा आगे देखते हैं. रिबेलियन देखते हैं अब. ट्राइबल्स, दिकूस एंड विजन ऑफ अ गोल्डन एज. थोड़ा इंट्रोडक्शन बस कर लेते हैं. चैप्टर बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. छुट्टी दे देता हूँ जल्दी से, टेंशन मत लो. You will see many tribes are mentioned here. So during newspaper classes, I asked you all to try to memorize the name of tribes which come into the newspaper. So that's one of the best way. Anyway, you have to remember the name of all these tribes which is mentioned in this map with their state. So Mala and Urular in Kerala, in Andhra and Telangana is not divided here. So Koya, Banjaras and Goonds in Maharashtra. Banjaras, we will also read about them in much detail. उधर मिडाइवल वाले बुक में भी एक और चैप्टर है जहाँ इनके बारे में और डिटेल से पढ़ना है. बट ट्राई टू मेमोराइज एज मेनी एज यू कैन. यहाँ पे बात करते, चलो अभी मैं बुक नहीं पढ़ाता हूँ, कुछ ऐसा स्टार्ट करते हैं. बेसिकली we will read about Birsa Munda, we will read about Sidhu Kanu, we will read about Alluri Sitaram Raju. These three characters mainly, what they did and how they fought. Alluri Sitaram Raju और बिरसा मुंडा को तो लोगों ने जीते जी भगवान बना दिया. They thought कि they are gods and they fought very bravely. Sometimes people used to believe that they can even stop bullets. So बिरसा मुंडा की कहानी पढ़ेंगे डिटेल से. चलो आज रहने देते हैं, अब तुम लोग भी क्या याद करोगे कि सर बहुत पढ़ा देते हैं. आते हैं नेक्स्ट क्लास में और कोशिश करेंगे थोड़ा और जल्दी जल्दी कवर करने का. सो वी हैव 2 days टू कवर मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री. 1857 हो गया है. इसके बाद अरे अभी लीव मत करो, अभी 5 मिनट सुन लो, इतना अकबकाओ मत। अ, हाँ, तो आगे क्या करना है? Modern history में you will see now we will enter into a new phase after this, and so there are few things that you need to keep in mind when you are reading history, modern history especially. So there will you can say two parallel lines that will be going through when you will read, and where you should focus upon. First will be the political administrative reforms and changes that are brought by the Britishers. So that's not very interesting. उसमें कोई war नहीं हो रहा है. Next class on Saturday. So उसमें कोई war नहीं हो रहा है. उसमें कोई so बहुत, and sometimes it becomes very clumsy. It feels like you are reading polity. So that's there. So all the acts and the provisions of that act, but they are very important. Then on the other side, you will feel the life. You will read about the life stories of all these freedom fighters and warriors who are doing their bit into the revolutionary process. We have to read about them. But history makes most of the sense when you are, especially modern history. हम लोग को movies में कहानी क्यों याद रहती है? तो movies देखते इंटरेस्टिंग रहता है. तो many of the time you will felt, मैंने कभी इस तरीके से सोचा नहीं था. But I have a senior who is in FTI film Institute of Technological Institute, yeah, which, so he's studying directorship there. So we were talking about direction and all, writing stories. And मैं कि केशव, हमको अक्सर फिल्म की कहानियां नहीं याद रहती, कैरेक्टर्स याद रह जाते हैं. We often forget the story कि इसके बाद ये हुआ था, इसके बाद ये हुआ था, but we remember the characters. Is it true? Like I think you might not have thought it from this perspective, but अभी सोच के देखो, think about your favorite movie, but you most of you have almost forgotten the story arc कि इसके बाद ये हुआ था, इसके बाद ये होता. But when you start thinking about the character, you will remember the character, and that's what then it hits me why like history is interesting for me, and how I have read history is completely different from how others teach or remember or read history. Because for me, history was always a story of individuals. So when I'm reading all this, I'm focusing upon, so if I'm reading about something which has happened before 1857, तो उस समय तो ठीक है, अभी तक तो चल रहा है. वो झांसी की रानी की स्टोरी उठा के देख लिया, या बहादुर शाह जफर को ट्रैक कर लिया, किसी एक कैरेक्टर को लेके what's happening. So think about what Mangal Pandey is doing and how he's contributing into 1857 ka revolt. We will come to that in chapter 5, by the way, if you're thinking कि 1857 का revolt क्यों नहीं हो रहा है. So we will read about that. I don't have a great brain. So how I have read history is that I have tracked these individual characters, right? So when you will start reading modern history now, so just think about one grand personality. Who is that's like open to everybody? That's Mahatma Gandhi, the superhero of Indian freedom struggle. So try to read everything from his perspective. In 1905, when we are fighting for Bengal partition, Gandhi ji kya kar rahe hain? So he is somewhere in Africa doing something. So in 10, what he is doing, and 15, he's what he's doing, and from 15 he enters into Indian politics. So Indian politics or Indian freedom struggle. And then तो उसके बाद तो बहुत आसान हो जाता है कि गांधी जी यहाँ गए, यहाँ गए, यहाँ गए, यहाँ गए, उन्होंने इस साल में ये किया, उस साल में वो किया. And I'm not saying कि ignore others. कि तुम सिर्फ गांधी जी को क्यों पढ़ेंगे. It's like कि you make that a central character in your movie. और उसके बाद उस कैरेक्टर के आसपास सब कुछ हो रहा है. तो sometime that characters will act as a villain when he's not going to fight for or raising the sufficient voice for रिलीजिंग भगत सिंह है ना, तो तुम्हारा कैरेक्टर हीरो विलेन का भी रोल कर सकता है, बट यू ट्रैक हिज स्टोरी आर्क, उसने कब क्या कैसे किया। एंड लकीली ही स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम 1815, तो सॉरी 1915, सो ही इज टिल द इंडिपेंडेंस। तो वो एक ऐसा कैरेक्टर है जो थ्रू आउट द स्टोरी है मेन कैरेक्टर। तो जब भी हिस्ट्री पढ़ो तो इस तरीके से पढ़ने की कोशिश करो कि एक कोई कैरेक्टर बनाओ दिमाग में और उसको ट्रैक करो कि ये जब ये कर रहा था तो दूसरा बंदा क्या कर रहा था, ठीक है। एंड इन दिस मैनर ओनली वी विल रीड व्हेन वी विल एंटर इनटू इंडियन पॉलिटिक्स। तो 1915 के बाद तो तुम लोगों को बहुत ही मजा आएगा, यू विल गेट अ very interesting idea about Gandhi himself, like the way I saw him. So most of you may have some लोग, कुछ लोगों का तो ऐसा मेजोरिटी ऑफ यू वुड हैव कि अरे ये टकला का क्यों इतना रिस्पेक्ट मिलता है पता नहीं, एंड सम ऑफ यू हैव कि ही इज सो ग्रेट, great moralist. But I will give you a complete new picture. Probably you have not seen Gandhi in that life. I will portray Gandhi as a great leader from whom you can learn a lot of leadership skills in your life. And world history तो पढ़ेंगे ही side by side, and you will get a lot of insights to write into ethics, very many stories. तो देखते हैं कब उस पे आते हैं, उसमें बहुत टाइम नहीं लगेगा, तो ना class or two we will finish everything up to 1915. So do not expect me to go into details of each and every act and all. I will just go through that story, you will, so that you can remember the arc, and then you can go deeper by reading Spectrum. ठीक है, समझ में आ गया बात सबको? चलो, ये बात मजेदार लगते हैं जब सोचते हैं हम, कह रहे स्टोरी तो याद रहती नहीं, सही में कैरेक्टर्स याद रहते हैं। पहली बार मैंने भी सोचा तो अरे हाँ ये तो बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है बात है। ठीक है चलो, नाउ आई विल गिव यू छुट्टी टुडे, और मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट वीक। बीच में जिसको जो डाउट हो पूछ लेना। कुछ लोगों ने न्यूज़पेपर क्लासेस के लिए बोला है, कुछ लोगों ने पेमेंट भी कर दिया है, बाकी जिनको करना है वो भी कल से ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं। पेमेंट यू हैव टू मेक ऑन माय नंबर, मोस्ट ऑफ यू हैव माय नंबर, so you can make your payment there and you can join the newspaper class. कंटेंट राइटिंग का कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, मैं बताऊंगा एज एंड व्हेन आई विल नीड, आई विल कांटेक्ट यू। चलो ठीक है, थैंक यू फॉर दिस काइंड वर्ड्स, क्लास वाज इंटरेस्टिंग। थोड़ा सा तुम लोग बोल देते हो तो मैं भी मोटिवेटेड रहता हूँ। ओके बाय, एंडिंग दिस क्लास नाउ, एंड सॉरी फॉर दिस टेक्निकल ग्लिच। आई विल फिगर आउट कि कुछ इसको सॉल्व करें। हाँ चलो बाय।